Hi guys, I've got a really cool wine for you today. This is actually a wine by Phillip. It's in the original wooden case and it's actually a wine that we sourced for a customer. So it's a 2018 Reserve Pinot Noir. These are incredibly rare. They're actually known as the best Pinot in Australia, the most consistent and the most characterful. So I want to talk you through Phillip as a producer, also this wine, but every time we get a wine, we open it up and we check it, and we also give it a little bit of a wipe. I always use these Riedel polishing cloths. I find them fantastic. So I thought, what better opportunity to actually open this together on a video, show you the experience, but also I just love opening a wine that comes in an original wooden case. It just makes me feel like a kid on Christmas, to be honest. It's such a beautiful experience. I think when you're getting into these really high quality wines, the presentation matters, but also it's just the experience. It's not just the enjoyment that you get from the wine, it's the whole experience of getting the box, opening it up, and then over time being able to enjoy the incredible wine in it. Such a cool original wooden case. There's a few different things that I want to talk to you about. So not just Phillip as a producer, but also want to talk to you through a little bit about original wooden cases and investment grade wine as well. Let's talk about Phillip as a producer. So based in Gippsland, down in Victoria. So originally Philip Jones was the winemaker and producer, and about 2020 the estate was taken over by Jean-Marie Fouillet, who's actually a really highly regarded producer over in Burgundy. In terms of his background, he actually trained under one of the top producers in Burgundy, so Henri Jaed. If you haven't heard of him, he is up there with your DRCs. So pretty much one of the best producers ever to come out of Burgundy. So that's a little bit about the experience that he's now bringing to Phillip. So even before he took over, Phillip has built up an incredible reputation as being a collector favourite and also performing well in the secondary market. So you've got the estate, the premium, the reserve. They focus on Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The Reserve Pinot Noir is actually the first classified, so part of the Langton's classification. So it is considered an investment grade wine. So I want to quickly sort of explain that piece. So investment grade wine is part of an area of investments and assets called alternatives. Within that sort of category of alternative investments, there's a subcategory called collectibles. So things like art, cars, watches, and of course, wine. So wine is and has been one of the best performing collectibles. So the Knight Frank Luxury Index tracks the performance of those collectibles from 2013 to 2023. Wine was the second best performing behind whiskey. So when we kind of look at those collectibles, we look at sort of their track record, but I want to sort of talk you through that a little bit more. So when we're talking about the Langton's classification, that's sort of the best thing that we can look to for investment grade wine in Australia. And the reason I say that is Australia doesn't have a formal classification like the 1855 Bordeaux classification, which you've probably heard me talk about so many times now. But we don't have a formal classification system like they do over in France. So the next best thing is the Langton's classification. Now, why that matters and why this wine is a first classified, so it means it's a first growth. That is basically the top of the hierarchy. So it's one of the best wines that you can get. And in order to become classified, you have to have built up a track record of a minimum of 10 years of being a collector favourite. So there's that demand, but also performing well on the secondary market. So that's that supply demand sort of sweet spot that we're always looking for in any investment, but particularly in the wine market. So the Reserve Pinot is a first classified, so part of the top of that hierarchy. It does then mean that it is an investment grade wine. The reason why wines are considered investment grade is when we're sort of talking about investment grade wines, we're talking about the top 1% of the wine world. These are wines that have, as I said, built up that track record of being a collector favorite and performing well on the secondary market. But these are wines that are inherently scarce, so you already have limited supply. You then have that track record, reputation, the quality of the wine, the long drink window, which means that you do have demand that tends to sit higher than supply. Even if they were balanced, when that wine is being drunk, supply is reducing. Typically, when you get into that drink window and people are drinking the wine and supply is reducing, demand, so more people wanting to drink that wine, tends to go up. And that's where that gap grows. And that's essentially what makes it valuable. So these are, as I said, some of the best wines in the world. The Reserve Pinot is actually considered the best Pinot that you can get in Australia. It's known for its consistency and its character. That can be really difficult to balance in a wine. This one is beautifully plush, but it's got that energy which we love. And that really comes from the acidity that helps to drive that fruit forward. So you get those beautiful sort of fruit flavor profile and concentration that comes through. So you've got those dark red cherries, the red fruits, but you've got complexity. This is aged in new oak for about 20 months. So you've got those beautiful sort of oak characteristics come through. You've got the mocha, the earthiness that comes through in Pinot Noir in general. And that just keeps evolving over time. It can age till about 2040. So you've got that beautiful long drink window. It is a beautiful, exceptional quality wine. It also is incredibly scarce. This wine is produced using just 5 rows of vines. That means we're talking very limited production. So incredibly, incredibly scarce. I'm actually stoked that we were able to source this for a customer, given that this is a back vintage, so 2018. So as we sort of go into the back vintages, they tend to become rarer. 2 things happen there is generally we're in that drink window where people are starting to drink the wine, but then also the demand for that wine is going up. So that's sort of where we're at. So it does make it rarer. It then generally makes it more valuable because of that gap between supply and demand that's growing. So they're kind of the economics, the supply versus demand economics around wine. Supply demand is really the only thing that you need to master with any type of investment, but it's also understanding the factors that play into that supply and demand. So absolutely incredible wine. Not only is it just produced by 5 rows, these are old vines. So you have got history that has gone into these vines. Now, why that really matters and also what makes it a valuable asset, and this is not just this wine specifically, but all investment grade wines, is it's not just the wine that you're buying today. You're buying a wine that has track record, that has, and I'm not just talking about, the way in which they make that vintage. Like if we take this, for example, these vines I think are from the 1800s. So you have got hundreds of years of effort that have actually gone into producing the wine that we get to enjoy today. So it's not just a single vineyard where you're in 2018 picking the vines, you're blending perfectly, you're getting that consistency, you're producing something, you're aging it then for 20 more months. That is a lot of time and effort that goes into producing that. Compound that with the fact that you then have vines that have gone through multiple different cycles. So we're talking about a huge track record and a huge process of time that has gone into producing the quality that we get to enjoy. This is why these wines are valuable. They are incredible to drink, but because of that, because of the time, the skill, the history that goes into them, it is a collectible because it is a part of history that's trapped in time that still evolves. This is why old vines make so much difference, because when you have an old vine, it's gone through so many cycles. It as a vine has actually matured. And what happens there is its root systems become more ingrained into the soil. So when it's pulling up those resources to build out that flavor profile, you're getting so much more depth, soil works in layers. When you have a root system that is deeply ingrained, you get more depth because there's always more depth when you're going deeper into something. And when you're pulling that up into the grape flavor profile, you're not just getting the fruit, you're getting that entire environment that's coming through. That's why, when you go to places like Chablis, so that region in northern part of Burgundy over in France, that's why you get the minerality that comes through. And particularly when we're talking about old vines, because there's not only the soil type, but there's actually marine fossils as well that are under the ground in like Champagne, Chablis. And so when we're pulling up those resources, if we have old vines that are deeply ingrained, we're going to have more of that terroir and flavor concentration, more of that soil type that's going to come through. The reason as well why that happens, not just in terms of the deeply ingrained root system and being able to push that into the grapes, is as a vine ages, it produces less grapes. So it means that when we're pulling from more depth and we've got more resources to push into that grape and we're pushing them into a lesser amount, it means that there's going to be more flavor per grape. This is why this wine is valuable. This is why this wine is exceptional to drink. This is why this wine is considered Australia's greatest Pinot, for not only its character, so that flavor profile, but also the consistency. That consistency not only comes from the grape having time to mature, but also the consistency of what winemakers do. Even if it's minimal intervention, particularly Phillip as a biodynamic producer, they're looking at various different things, the entire ecosystem. So when we're talking about biodynamic producers, we're not just talking about sustainable, so limiting the amount of pesticides. We're not talking about organic, where we've limited them so much that we're certified organic. We're talking about the soil microbiome, so what are the things that it needs to become balanced and pull the best resources, what are the pests in the vineyard and what are their natural predators that we can integrate into the vineyard to balance that ecosystem, what are the lunar cycles and how is the sun impacting the grapes, so we know when is the best time to pick those grapes to retain the most amount of acidity so that we get then in this glass that drive that pushes forward the fruit, but also has that flavor concentration that is best balanced so that we have that sort of subtle plush fruit that comes through. That is skill, winemaker skill. Even if it's minimal intervention, which this wine is minimal intervention, you've got that skill in managing the vineyard, managing the vine, knowing how to then age it once we sort of pick it at the right time. Then we've got to do all the other things that come down to skill. How are we pressing? How much time are we leaving that wine on its skins? How long are we aging it? What component of new oak versus old oak are we using? What size are the barrels? Because all of those things influence that final wine. So it is a beautiful balance of both the vineyard and the skill of the actual winemaker. So I hope that shares a little bit more about Phillip, this incredible wine, why it's an incredible wine, the whole experience. Like I love the original wooden case. It's such a joy to open and to be able to see these bottles, like just knowing how much has gone into this and having that appreciation for it. I think one of the best inventions has been the Coravin, because being able to see a wine over time. And I think as well, when you get to enjoy these back vintages, you get to understand how the wine will age and develop over time. And yeah, it's an experience. It really is. I think this is the joy of wine in general. It's something that is, a moment trapped in time, but also something that transcends time. There's something just incredible about that. These are just fantastic wines, and I get so much joy from being able to not only source fantastic bottles like this, being able to get them in the hands of people that equally, you know, find so much joy in that experience as well. Bass Phillip, as a producer and also a distributor, they distribute some incredible wines, not just their own, but it's such a great experience. And I'm so glad that I got to share opening this with you. Cheers.